As part of efforts to diversify the economy, the federal government launched the Yam Export Program. The program is facing some challenges following the declaration that some of the yams that departed the nation's shores arrived their destination in poor quality. How is the government tackling this fresh challenge? On this week's edition of the program, we shall be looking at matters arising from the Yam Export Program. Hello there, thank you for joining us on the program this week. I'm Gloria Umezuke. On June 29, 2017, the federal government launched the Yam Export Program with the export of 72 metric tons of yam to the United States, Europe and the United Kingdom. Now, what are the lessons learned from the pilot project? We will talk about that in our interview segment, but first, what are the stories that made the headlines within the week from the nation's capital? The Nigerian Center for Disease Control has confirmed 12 of monkeypox cases in Bayelsa State, saying there is no single death from the scourge, contrary to widespread speculation. Consequently, it had deployed a rapid response team to support local authorities to tackle the outbreak.
We have outbreaks almost every other year on meningitis, especially when there's a new strain circulating like this year. The meningitis belt, we were affected a lot, but really cuts across West Africa. So we have to share this information as quickly as possible in order for public health decisions to be made. But to share information, you have to build trust across the different countries and the different institutions that hold this data. So really this meeting is about trying to define a framework on which both information and samples can be shared among colleagues that need to then take action and define how that can happen so that everyone benefits from it and society benefits from it. And by sharing early, you are able to prevent. So what we've learned out of the Ebola outbreak and several other outbreaks is the earlier you share information within a trusted network, the quicker colleagues are able to act on that information and put measures in place that will ultimately save lives.
The federal government has said verified debts owed by the ministries, departments and agencies, MDAs, for electricity consumed would not be paid directly to electricity distribution companies, but would be deducted from other outstanding debts to government. The distribution companies claim the MDAs are owing them over 67.41 billion naira for electricity supplied to them over the last 3 years.
Government has also approved that this amount that has now been quantified and approved as a debt be set off against the amount owed by the discos to Embed, which is a 100% government-owned company, because they owe, you've only always had one side of it that government owes them. The other side is that they also owe government for their unremitted collections for energy that they have taken and have not remitted a full amount. They are owing about 500 and something billion to government.
Apparently, sensing sabotage, the federal government may soon begin investigations into how a consignment of yams went rotten before it got to its export destinations in the United States of America and the United Kingdom. The federal government had in June exported a large consignment of yams from Nigeria to Europe and America in a bid to boost its non-oil export. But the yams were discovered to have gone bad on delivery.
We'll investigate both the company that exported it and ask our quarantine department to check and find out why such a consignment left here.
The Nigerian Labour Congress is asking the federal government to set up a platform that will facilitate dialogue on the calls for restructuring so as to address the myriads of problems threatening to tear apart the unity of the country. Labour also lamented that after 57 years of gaining independence, Nigeria was still in clutches of the Western world, which it said had drastically ruined its economy.
In almost 6 decades of national independence, we are not where we ought to be as a country. As we celebrate 57 years of political independence, those qualities of selfless service are very much needed in today's contemporary Nigeria. As Nigerians, we must continue to have confidence in ourselves. As citizens, build bridges of peace and unity instead of indulging in hatred and constant promotion of separatism agitation.
The President, Muhammadu Buhari, has called on the judiciary to come up with an initiative that will ensure speedy dispensation of justice, thereby decongesting the nation's prisons. The President made this known when the judges of the Supreme Court, Court of Appeal and other head of courts paid him a courtesy visit at the presidential villa in Abuja. He also called for the establishment of courts in prison yards to speed up decongestion.
In their various jurisdictions, one or more courts as special courts to speedily try corruption and financial crime cases, and for Supreme Court and Court of Appeal to fix special dates each week for hearing and determining appeals from special courts.
Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo has accused the civil society organizations of not doing enough to fight corruption. Professor Osinbajo made the accusation at a meeting with members of various CSOs and called for more support in the federal government's anti-corruption drive.
I don't think civil society has shown the outrage that one expects or the consistency in tracking these issues. I don't think that. People come to me and say, how come there's been no conviction? How come there's been... Where are the campaigns? Where are those who are saying, call these guys out? Make sure that these guys are not able to spend their ill-gotten wealth. Make sure that these guys who have been named and shamed remain named and shamed. I don't see that outrage, and I think it's an important issue because this is, in my view, the most important problem that this country has. People talk about all manner of things. People say, oh, look, once we restructure, everything will be fine. But if we get the best restructuring arrangement and we still tolerate the levels of corruption that we're tolerating, I don't see how we're going to make much progress.
As part of efforts to enthrone good governance in the country, the Progressive Governors Forum is advocating the introduction of free and compulsory basic education in all states controlled by the All Progressives Congress.
The issue about security trust fund, then the other one universal basic education, then thirdly the revenue generation, the IGR in the various states. And what are we trying to do? Taking the best practice from the various states. And the component of this, all agreed by the party. The national chairman of the party was heavily represented by the deputy national chairman South, who was there during the interactive session. All the attorney generals of IPC state, the speakers, heavily led by the chairman of Conference of Speakers, which is the KB State House of Assembly Speaker. And they met and we interacted, and this draft bill was focused on those three major areas. And one of the reasons being, for example, Lagos State, when you talk about issue about security fund, you know the dingling resources that comes to state that are not much. And still the state has to carry a lot of burden in supporting the security agencies in their various states. Now we're saying some states have done security fund, trust fund, and it has helped them. And then instead of putting so much strength, so much on their state account, and now they can go out and raise funds from anywhere.